here.
Welcome to the June 13th meeting of the Houston County Historical Society. We'd like to welcome our guests from Stewart County. If you would silence your phones, please. And the flag is to the right if Greg will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting minutes, everybody get their minutes. No problem with anybody? Maybe we got all that taken care of. Any question on the minutes? Notice they were the April meeting minutes. We had, in May, we had Dr. Ali that spoke at the library on Walk-Through Fire, the disaster in Waverly 45 years ago. If you have not read that book, you need to. If you're from Houston County, Stewart County, Humphreys County, if you were around anywhere in this area, it's very, very well written, and she did a good job on her presentation, and I would recommend that book highly. Any questions on the minutes? Then we will deem minutes approved. Treasurer's report, Leah?
In April and May, we had income of $220, and we had expenses of about $600, but we paid our insurance policy. We have an annual insurance policy that covers our meetings. So we have a balance in the checking account of $2,012. In our CD, we have $11,450, and a couple of us have been talking about at our presentations, at our evenings like this, we have a laptop and a projector that are borrowed. And it was thought perhaps we might acquire of our own. Because as speakers come, these days with more technology, we might benefit from having our own laptop and projector.
Is there a motion to get our own laptop? What do you need, laptop, projector,
And software, we need Microsoft Office because people use PowerPoint. So what I would like to suggest is that we take $1,000 from our CD and invest that in technology and roll over the rest. Because on July 1st, our current CD will roll over.
Okay, is that a motion to do that?
I suppose, yeah.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Spend the money.
Okay.
And old business, World War II. Donald, do you have an update?
Got our program coming up August the 19th. If you've got any World War II information, we'd love to have it where we can include it in the program and everything. We've had a lot of information that's came in the last couple of weeks. But if you've got anything, we'd sure appreciate you sending it to us.
And our deadline is?
We're shooting for Friday to have the information in as far as guaranteeing that we would put it in the slideshow. But we want to continue to take the information. If there's any way possible, we'll try and get it in the slideshow.
That'll give us 2 months to get that organized.
Right, correct.
On the program. Remember, we have prints for sale, we have maps for sale, and we have books for sale. See your minutes that tells what all we have. You'll check the minutes from April. New business. We didn't have a speaker for July until last night. I went to the exhibit about Lucille Clement, all about Lucille, at the Dixon County Historical Society. Had a preview of the Lucille Christensen Clement exhibit. All About Lucille is a new exhibit by the Clement Railroad Museum, Hotel Museum. And on Thursday, June the 15th at 6 o'clock at the Frank Clement Place in Dixon, they will have the original exhibit. Focuses on the life and legacy of Tennessee's First Lady, Lucille Christensen Clement, who happened to be born in Houston County. It's a very nice exhibit, and it has some of her clothes, and she was a beautiful lady. So if you get a chance, go by the museum and see that. Is there any other new business or old business you'd like to discuss? We will turn the program over to Melissa.
I would have.
Oh, yes, you do. That's right. I'm
Your
sorry.
county doesn't have a meeting this month because we're due. We just have a little item of appreciation for those who serve as our officers and those who continue to serve as officer and serve again as an officer and serve. And tonight is acting president again. See, we forgot her birthday, June 7th. Happy birthday, Ski!
I wasn't gonna lie to you, it's a building.
Yeah, you can. We appreciate you.
I also have a card for Mr. Gary Booker, if you have not signed that. We need to give that to him, and I'll turn the program over to Melissa. If some of you want to move, there's a few chairs over here, and move where you can see the slides. It's kind of small, I'm sorry. We get lots. Yes.
Here's your candle and brownies. And more brownies. More brownies. They know that's my favorite, so.
Is that okay, Dawn, with you? Is that gonna work? Okay.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Thank you all for coming out. I always enjoy our joint meetings. I get to catch up with my Stewart County friends. We're going to see they're going to have a couple surprises in here, and you're going to pleasantly, hopefully enjoy the presentation because it has some Stewart County stuff in it too. I usually give an update at our meetings, and that is about what's been donated, what kind of projects we're working on. We get people that contact us just like your Historical Society and your archives about doing research, about things in Houston County. A lot of times I have to send them to Stewart County because it's before 1871. And so glad to have them in the museum. If I had to talk to Ron tonight, this is a photograph that we received this, it's a picture postcard actually. And it was amongst the Mabel and Louise Winnick collection that I talked about at our last meeting that we had in person. And the more I looked at it, the more I realized that it probably is not Houston County, and I really believed that it would be Stewart County. So last week I actually met at the archives with Jim Long, and Ski was there, and I brought this to them because one of the things that archivists do, I think if they're worth their salt, as they go through collections or receive donation of collections, if it contains things that belong in other counties, I'm a firm believer in that it should go back to them. And so every once in a while, I'll meet up with Jim, and I will take him some bits and pieces that I have collected over time that really belong in Stewart County, not in Houston County. And so I took him this postcard, thinking that it was Stewart County. It says People's Bank on it, on the window behind the horse. And then over here, we're not sure what exactly it says. So he was going to do some research on it. But now Ron tonight tells me that he doesn't think it's in Stewart County either.
But did he tell you where the bank's at?
No.
Behind the horse.
He says it's behind the horse. The bank's behind the horse. Yes.
Nailed it.
Well, that's an option he said when he wondered if it was the People's Bank in Van there. Do you recognize it?
People's Bank, there is a People's Bank down there, and about a dozen in the state. So that would be the closest, so one of the questions later would be for the
And it was
banks
from
that
Mabel
were
and Louise.
Yes.
It could have been
Yeah.
very easily been there.
Yeah. So that's probably where it's from. But I wanted to show that. Several of us in Houston County will remember, where's Miss Kay? She's hiding. There she is. In Stewart, not Stewart County, but in Stewart, there was a post office. And when they built the new post office, what I call the innards of the post office were preserved. And it was stored in the Stewart School. It's been there for years. I can't even count how many years. And the Stewart School was under the auspices of the Stewart Community Center, which was a nonprofit. And like a lot of our nonprofits, they aged out. Many of them have died. The last ones to have ownership of it, they've also have fizzled. And I was contacted by the person who was over the group because I had talked to this person and I said, if you ever get rid of the post office, let me know, or ever need to find a place for the post office. So I was contacted last week, a couple weeks ago, and the building is going to be used for another purpose. And they said, you can come get the post office. So when I tell people that I have been gifted a post office, people look at me like, what? So I have other pictures, but I didn't have time to pull them out. But I did get this picture and got it scanned. There's more to it. This side over here has all the boxes. All the post office boxes survive. My husband's family, his mother and grandparents lived. His mother grew up in Stewart. His grandfather had one of the post office boxes, and my husband actually still remembers the combination to get into the box. So we will be getting the post office. We're going to be getting the original Stewart School sign and a bunch of other stuff. And so I have, if anyone's ever been to my archives in the basement of the courthouse, I have nowhere to put a post office. We are working on a place to put it, which we think it's going to be open to the public, and will be able to be seen. And so we're very excited about this particular donation. This is my next surprise. Kim, I hope you're listening. On Sunday, if any of you are following the Houston County Community Forum, the lady posted pictures on there and said, these were found in my shed. What do I do with them? They're tombstones. And someone said call the sheriff's office. Sheriff's office said call the archives. So I contacted her, and this morning I went and picked up the tombstones. She said she wanted them off her property because it was bad juju. So this first one is Louisa. Actually, it's Parchman. I put Kelly. It's not Kelly. It's Parchman. She was born March 21st, 1835. She died September 21st, 1841. She was only 6 years old. She's the daughter of John Parchman and Mary Sarah Sally Kelly. These are original tombstones. I looked in the Stewart County Cemetery book and they're not listed in there. These are very well preserved tombstones, which tells me they've been in storage for a long time. Probably even before the Stewart County Cemetery book. They were in her shed. She had just bought this house. So we don't know how they got there. We don't know why they got there. But my goal is to maybe figure out where they belong and maybe replace them. That might be difficult. But this is only one tombstone. Here's the other one, Benjamin Kelly. He was born about 1781 because he died September 12, 1836. He is possibly the father of Mary S. Kelly Parchman and the grandfather of Louisa Parchman, the one I just showed you. His tombstone is a little bit bigger, but they're original limestone, like I said, and it's perfect. I mean, the script is exactly time of the era right, but there's hardly any erosion on these tombstones. Oh, I've already talked to Carol. She was going to get these stones from the lady at the end of the month when she came into town, and the lady says, no, come get them now. I said, okay. There's one other, a footstone. It says JMP. And that's either John M. Parchman or John and Mary Parchman or so. I called my friend, my cohort, the one who I always go to with help, and he calls me for help, Jim Long at the Stewart County Archives. And this was like mid-morning, or well, maybe it was after lunch, I can't remember. Yeah, it was after lunch, today. I called him, and of course he was all excited, so he did a little bit of research, and this is what he sent me, so I'll put this out there. Benjamin Kelly owned 100 acres at the time of his death, but it didn't start appearing on his tax entries until 1836. I'm not sure where it was, but it was either on Wells Creek or Geis's Creek. It may have been the 100 acres that previously belonged to his brother, Edmund Kelly, in the tax records, in which case it was on Geis's Creek. Most of the deeds that Benjamin Kelly witnessed in Stewart County were on the dry fork of Geis's Creek. Benjamin's 1836 will names his daughter, Polly or Mary Parchman, and her husband, John Parchman, and their daughter, daughters Sarah Kelly, and daughter Nellie Kelly, and son William Kelly. It sure seems that Louisa Parchman was the daughter of John and Mary Kelly Parchman, therefore Benjamin's granddaughter. I'll bet that J.M.P. Footstone belongs to John Parchman, father of Louisa, and son-in-law executor of Benjamin Kelly. So my goal, like I said, is to get them placed back where they go. Yes, Miss Kim. I knew I was hoping you'd be here.
All right, if these are the same ones I chased years ago, they were in Miss Powers' barn. Miss Powers lived on the corner of 149 and is it Grace's Road? It goes down there.
Yeah, well, this is not where these were found.
Well, but they got moved.
Yeah.
See, I found them, got information to go to her.
Uh-huh.
She had died. They ended up with one of the Beard fellas. Last
Okay.
name was Beard.
Mhm.
And then from there, they went somewhere. But the closest I could get for a location was that there was a Parchman cemetery in the highway where they put the new 149 through, and it got bulldozed.
Hmm.
And the stones ended up with her.
Okay.
So I contacted the state, and they had no record of moving the graveyards. I said, well, maybe they moved the graves, but nobody knew. So that was the closest I got. Well, then Mr. Beard died, and I lost the trail.
Okay.
So I never got the
Yeah.
stones.
These were not found on a farm. These were in a shed in a subdivision, I'll just say that. The person doesn't necessarily want to remain anonymous, but I'm working on this story. It'll probably end up in the paper, but so it's not like it's. I actually thought maybe Freddie Parchman because he passed away a year or so, and I was thinking maybe his family, but. So this was just a shock, and these are in the archives. I went and got them this morning from the lady, and they're not that big. Well, as for tombstones, they're not that big. The one for Louisa is about that big, and then the one for Benjamin is about that big. And the footstone's about like that. I mean, they're heavy, but anyway, so I have them. So if you would like to do some research and figure out where they go, yes.
I wasn't volunteering, but just trying to find.
Yes, you were. Who's got volunteered?
Any indication as to who or where they're going to be?
No, I don't know. I'm
They're
sure.
in such great shape. You know.
They're in very, that's what makes me think they've been, and what Kim has just said now kind of confirms that. They have been in storage somewhere for a long time because usually you have a lot of weathering. Either you can't read it at all or it's been wiped off a little bit. These cuts are almost like they originally were when they were first made. That's how deep they still are. Huh?
Where's the road go?
149? Anybody know when 149 was built? Was it the
Probably like 70.
late 70s? Well, I'm thinking it was before the cemetery book was published, which was in the 80s. Or else I would have thought it would have been recorded. No. So that's my two surprises for tonight. So I thought with Stewart County coming, especially the headstones, that would be fantastic to share. So if you want to come see them, they're in the archives. So let's talk about what you can learn from a county's checkbook. First, many of you know this story, but I love telling it, about how we became an archives. And I was hoping Ann was going to be here tonight. Because of a murder in 1921 is why we have an archives. And I'd love to tell this story. These are our cast of characters. We have Edward Washer and we have David Barfield Adams. And we have Miss Ann Rosher Smith Hagler. Miss Ann was writing a book about her family and about the murder of her relative, Edward Rosher, on the streets of Erin in 1921. And like many genealogists, she could see the court records on microfilm, but she wanted to see and hold the actual records. So at that time, people told her to go to the basement of the courthouse, that there was a vault there, that you could see the records there. And it's right, it's true, there's a vault down there, but when she got down there, the vault was open. It had been unlocked open for anybody to go in and do whatever for years. And she couldn't get in because it was packed to the ceiling and to the door. So her and some others got permission from the county mayor. We were going to get together, clean out the vault, organize it, that's all we were going to do. And I'm minding my own business, and I get a phone call from Kay French. So I blame her, but no, I don't know. And asked me if I'd like to be part of this group. I know, I do thank her a lot. And we met in August of 2010, and all we were going to do is clean out the vault. The courthouse was built in 1956, the current courthouse. And there was a records vault, and it's a room. It's a whole room. I love the records vault. It was filled to the ceiling and to the door. There was no way to get in there. I told you that. So in 2010, we got permission to kind of clean it out and organize it. Here's the courthouse. And the red arrow is where our archives room started. The yellow arrow is about where the vault is in the basement. That's about where it's located. These are the people that came and got busy doing this in August of 2010. Of course, we have Ann. We have Miss Kay French, who was our county librarian at the time. Jerry Bybee, who was president of the Historical Society. Benetta James. Donald was part of our group. And myself. And I'll tell you that I almost told Kay no, because I had a lot on my plate at the time. And I said, you know, I thought, well, one day. It's not going to hurt to do one day. So on that August day, we met at 9 a.m. in the basement of the courthouse and started dragging stuff out of that vault. There was records, boxes torn, records on the floor. We found old Christmas decorations, bags of unspent ammunition. We found some fantastic apple crates that have some of our oldest court records in them, and I've still got those crates. But we didn't find any bugs. We didn't find any rodents. We found no evidence of that, and I still don't. There are still no bugs or rodents ever found in that vault. We went to lunch at noon, across into the square where there was a nice little diner, and we started talking about the fact that we needed an archive. Because we saw the state of the records, and we needed an archive. And everybody was on board. Yes, we needed an archive. And then someone said, well, we need someone to head this up, and everybody sat on their hands. Nobody was going to volunteer that one. And so a couple of them turned to me and said, well, why don't you do it, Melissa? You do genealogy. I said, I do genealogy, but I'm not an archivist. And so I was convinced to look into it, so we did. So I did. Thankfully, the Tennessee State Library and Archives has a wonderful program called the Archives Institute. It's a 3-year program where you can become certified in archives management. And I went through the program and became our county archivist. This is not pictures of what it looked like at the beginning. Any of you that remember Mike Davis, he took pictures on that very first day. And a year later, I asked him where those pictures were, and he could not find them. His all his pictures that were digital, he kind of just piled them in his computer, so he couldn't find them. But this is some pictures taken just a few years after we had started. There's another picture. So you can see it's a room. There's a pretty good sized room in there. I love it. There's another one. This is actually when we went up to the old jail. They're doing work now at the old jail. They tore down the house part. They're building a new part to it. But the jail cells still exist. And this is when we went, the group of us, and we cleaned out. There were a bunch of old records up there. So we cleaned those out. We were going across the county trying to find records. The highway department was getting ready to move out and go into another building, and so they asked us to come out and go through the records that they had at the highway department. So that's Donald, Ann, me, and Leah. You've ever seen this picture, Leah? This is how they got the records down. They were in a loft area. And they said, hey, Melissa, you want to go up there? I said, no, you can bring them down here. So they went up there and got them and brought them down. So November 15, 2010, the legislative body established the Houston County Archives. And I will say, and I always say it every time I tell this story, that if it hadn't been, and there's Miss Ann, she's coming in. If it hadn't been for Ann Hagler and especially Kay French, we would not have an archive today. I will always give them credit and thanks until the day I die. February the 1st of 2011, I was hired as our very first county archivist. Scared to death because I inherited a lot. Thankfully, our county really didn't throw anything away. That's fantastic, but then having to organize it. And of course, I told you that I received my certification in 2013. And January the 11th, 2022, we were designated an archives and museum by the county legislator. If you ever come to archives, you'll see why we have what I call a mini museum. I hope one day to have a very big museum. And here's some exhibits and things that are in our museum. It's our desk. This is the desk from the Yellow Creek School. Nina Finley actually donated that to us years ago. This is our display where I put a lot of the new things that are donated, and they go in there. And so what happened with Ann? Well, Ann just walked in the door. I'm telling the story of how the archives got. She published her book, The Settling Place. And so I would highly encourage you to read it. It's a fantastic book. So, some early history of Houston County, and I also included some Stewart County stuff, can be found in a county's checkbook. So in March of 2020, this is COVID time, I was sitting home for 3 weeks to work from home during COVID. This is when it broke out and everybody was going crazy and stuff. I was one of the few in the courthouse that could actually work from home. I always like to talk about whenever electricity goes out in the courthouse that I could still work with the candle, because when you work with papers and documents like we do in the old stuff, you don't need computers unless you're going to index. And so I was sitting home for 3 weeks, and so I grabbed up some stuff to work on from home. And I took home a county warrant book, check stubs. I had always been fascinated by them because they were saved in the condition that they were. And this is them. This is what they look like. Many of you will remember when you wrote checks and you left a stub in your little checkbook. Now the checkbook comes out this way. That's what these are. The county trustee would have written the checks out that were out this way and torn them off, and it left these. But they wrote a lot of great information on this. So what is a warrant? I had to learn that myself. It's a written order by one person that instructs or authorizes another person to pay a specified recipient a specific amount of money or supply goods at a specific date. Governments and businesses may pay wages and other accounts by issuing warrants. So, essentially, it's a checkbook. So what kind of things can be discovered? And here's some pictures of it. I went through and indexed the entire thing of these. And each one of these has 1, 2, 3, 4, has 5, would have 5 checks on it. So those are individual checks. So the warrant book, complete with warrant numbers or check numbers. And it's warrants 1 through 1,991 and covers the years 1871 to 1886. So that's 15 years worth of checks. And this is the check stubs for those. Well, many of you know 1871 was when we were established. So I pulled out some to show you. Warrant number 1, the very first check that was ever written when Houston County became a county, was to Mr. McKinnon. There you are. Yep, that was the very first one. And he got paid for listing taxes for district number 1. And that's dated 1871. And you'll notice on all of these that I'm showing you, The amount of the check is shown as $10. I went online and found out how much it would be today with inflation and put that underneath. So pay attention to that as you're seeing these. It was, in today's, it would be $322. The next one is warrant one, the last one, $1,991, paid to James Clark, who was sheriff. Jail fees, etc., up to the July term of 1886. And that was for $70.50. $70.50 in 1886 was a lot of money. So what kind of information can you find? Listing and collecting taxes by district. Yes, even though we were in New County, they were already collecting taxes. Payments to jurors. How many of you as genealogists or researchers look for your ancestors in those lists of jurors in the court records? Well, they also had to pay those jurors, and they could be in the county warrants. Payments for surveying the new county lines. This is the one that I really found fascinating, is that they pay the new Houston County lines. And payments for holding elections in specific districts. A great place to find names. And much, much more. So what if your ancestor was a pauper? You would think, well, they don't have any money. Well, at that time, usually the county took care of the paupers. These are filled with money that went to paupers. So if you're looking for your ancestors who was a pauper, and they're not in much of any other records, look in the county warrants. Here's one, warrant 93, paid to John Brown for the benefit of Dennis Duff. A means of support as a pauper, $10. What I found was that normally there was someone who was in charge of taking care of the money for these individual paupers. And what also you found is that they were paid almost like on a monthly or a quarterly basis, so they show up a lot, over and over and over, until they die, and then you see a warrant for a casket for a pauper and gives his name. Here's another one, number 213, for Hannah Kaiser. And this is on the benefit of Lucy Thomas, who was a pauper, $20. And another one, warrant 1045, paid to J.M. Wilson. This is for a coffin for a pauper, Alf Fly. I like that name, Alf. Have you ever been through the town of Fly, Tennessee? There's actually a cemetery called the Fly Cemetery. And I've often wondered if there were flies buried there. Also, they paid death inquests, kind of like coroner's inquests. People that died that they wanted to look into and figure out what happened. This is warrant 352 to J. Mobley. This is for holding the inquest over the dead body of Wiley Langford. $8.50. Warrant number 529, D. McMillan, holding inquest over the dead body of Ben Slaughter. This is before death certificates. So if you're looking for an ancestor that died before death certificates, maybe you find them in the warrants. Warrant number 266, J.W. Nichols, holding inquest over the dead body of man unknown. $8.50. The county also paid for animal scalps. I still have a question as to what did the county do with them. But yeah, they paid for animal scalps. This is warrant number 32 to J.M. Keel. He was getting paid for holding 2 elections and 1 wildcat scalp proven. $5. Warrant 505 to J.S. Lee. He's really well known to a lot of us in Houston County. He's getting paid for road orders, motions, orders, reports, X-charges, and a fox scalp, etc. $82.85. That's a lot of money in that day. So that's Houston County. There's a couple of instances of Clarksville in these warrants. This is warrant 823, paid to A.F. Henson for carrying a prisoner to Clarksville and return, and tickets on the train, most likely, or stagecoach, maybe. $10.75. Warrant 1044, T.A. McCaskill taking prisoner George Andrews to the Clarksville jail. $6. That's what you got. Now, let's move to Dover, Stewart County. They are represented in our county warrants. Warrant 110, pay to A.G. Holiday, 2 trips to Dover in the cause of Stewart County versus Houston County. I wonder what that was all about. That was when Stewart County sued and got some of their property back. Yeah. Warrant 190 to Mr. McKinnon again for his services surveying Stewart County. $30 for that. And warrant 193 W.H. Daniel for also surveying Stewart County. There's a lot of surveying going on in the beginning of the county. And warrant 200 E. Atkins also for surveying Stewart County. And warrant 515, Mrs. Ann Shelton. Services as the admitrix of W.M. Shelton surveying Stewart County under compromise between Stewart and Houston counties, $141. So there's a lot of research that can be done on these people and what they did. These are just what they got paid. So no warrant stubs, no problem. Number 37 warrant, Alfred Stevens for surveying county lines. Remember, whenever Houston County was formed, they had to survey those county lines. And so people had to do that and they got paid for it. So let's just say we don't have this warrant stub. Where else can we find this information? We can find it in the court minutes. Like now we have legislative body, back then it was called quarterly court. And so this is quarterly court from Monday, the 4th day of September, 1871, volume 1, page 51. And if you look closely, here is that entry. It says, ordered by the court that Alfred Stevens be allowed $35.80 for services surveying Houston County lines to be paid out of any funds in the hands of the trustee. And then if you look where the red arrow is, it says issued, which means it was paid. We usually marked it when it was paid. So here's some tips from me. Not all records are online. We all know that, I hope. Archives are full of wonderful, unique records that could mention your ancestors. And do not discount any records, especially warrants, and to tell your ancestor's story, because all of us that lived on this planet has a story to tell. And I think we should be telling the stories of everyone that we can. Thank you. I meant to print it out because I have indexed these. I have the index of the archives, but there's a lot of, you can turn on the light.
Who would be writing these warrants?
These will be coming out of the trustee's office, whoever the trustee was at the time, or the county court clerk. They aren't signed on the receipts. No. More dated. But I can tell you, going by the minutes, books, that I can date them. What I ran into trying to do this is I have a tremendous amount of these that I couldn't read every word. And so when you index something like that, you put what you can read and then put question marks for what you can't read. And so there's a lot that I couldn't read. And so maybe someone else can come along and read it. You got any questions? Yes.
Maybe a comment in terms of the scalps, I'm
Yeah.
not sure, but at least for wolf pelts at Stewart County, they were burning them afterwards. So someone would bring them in, this is the early 1810s.
Mhm.
Someone would bring them in, presumably get paid, and then they would burn them afterwards.
Why?
I see, well, I guess it'd be, if, you don't want to store them probably anywhere.
Those are your names, would be one thing I think of. Those are names.
And then you probably also don't want those same people taking them back, because then you just bring them in and get back.
Selling them.
Yeah.
It's like the Cobra type, right?
So I guess it was an incentive then to rid the area of these dangerous animals. And if you brought the pelt in, it showed that you did that and you got paid.
And have to certify that it was done in the county,
Yeah.
have that, you know, represent honestly, maybe, get a little bit.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking you'd make a stole out of it or something, you know, what the county was in the clothing business, you know.
I'm not saying they were burned here, but
Yeah.
that's what they're doing.
Well, that's the norm, I would think they'd probably do the same thing. But it's, you know, our county history, both of our county histories are very rich. And we have records in both of our archives that help to tell that story. So I hope that it was something interesting for you guys.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. We hope to see you all back in July the 11th. Mr. Zach Kinslow, what is his title?
He's a director.
Director. He is the director of the Frank Clement Museum in Dixon, Tennessee, and he will be giving a speech on July 11th. Then our August meeting is the World War II meeting, so we hope to see you all then. Thank you.